everyone, so today we're going to continue solving inequalities, but we're going to take a look at ones that are a little more complicated, but we're still going to follow the same steps that we've been using. So let's take a look. Okay, solving multi-step inequalities. Remember DCMAM when solving multi-step inequalities, just like we did in the last video. We're going to distribute, combine like terms as long as they're on the same side of the equal sign. We move the variables with the smaller coefficient, that smaller number in front. You add or subtract your constants depending on what kind of inequality you have. And then your last step, multiply or divide. Most of the time, it's divide. So don't call me after midnight. You can always write this on the side of your paper, at the top of your paper. When solving these, it might help you remember which steps you need to do in what order. Okay, so let's take a look at this example. Solve the following inequality for m. Write your answer in simplest form. So remember, if we have an answer that is a fraction, we have to make sure that we write our answer in simplest form. So the first thing I'm going to do is draw the train tracks. Remember, we want to stay very organized here. It's a lot of steps. And I'm going to just write D, C, M, A, M. Okay, so we're going to distribute first. So I have this -4 right outside the parentheses. Make sure you distribute a -4 instead of a +4. And remember to only distribute what's inside the parentheses. Don't go any further, and only distribute what's directly outside. So this 8m is not included in this distribution. So we have -4 times -2. A negative times a negative is a positive. So we get positive 8m. And then -4 times -2 is a positive 8. Now I don't have to distribute on this side, so I'm not going to focus on that side right now. And I'm going to just bring down anything that was not used. Bring that down, bring this down, and bring down this entire side of the equal sign. Just make sure this looks correct. Just write that in here. Okay. Plus 3 minus 8. Okay, so that was our first step. I'm going to just cross that out. And now the next step is to combine like terms. So on this side, we have this 8m and this 8m. We're going to combine those. And when we combine those, we get 16m. And then on this side, we have this -7. And then we have this -8. And when we combine that, we get -15. Remember, do not combine these two because we have that equal sign in the middle. You can't cross those train tracks. So only combine them when they're on the same side. I'm going to bring down that +8, our inequality symbol, and then I'm going to bring down that +3. All right, so that was this step. Now we're going to move the variable with the smaller coefficient. So we have 16m and -15m. The one with the smaller coefficient in front is this -15. So I'm going to use the inverse. I'm going to add 15 to both sides. I'm going to stack it with its like term, which is that 16m. That cancels here. 16 plus 15 is 31. Remember, don't touch the exponents here. Just bring down the m, and then bring down anything you didn't use. All right, next step is to, let me just cross that out, add or subtract constants. So I'm going to subtract this 8 on both sides. Remember, we want to get that variable by itself. So we get 31m is less than or equal to -5. Last step, let's divide. We want to get the variable by itself, like we said. So we're going to divide 31 on both sides. That cancels. So we are left with, which I'm going to just rewrite it over here, m is less than or equal to -5 over 31. We can't simplify this fraction, so I'm going to leave it exactly the way it is. Notice I did not flip the inequality symbol here because we did not divide by negative. So remember, if you divide just by a positive number, you keep that the same. Just so we are aware, another way to write this would be negative 5 over 31 is greater than or equal to m. If you notice, these switched sides, so then I flipped the inequality. That's only because I rewrote it like this, but I would keep it just like this. I just want you guys to know that this is the same answer as this. Okay, but on Delta Math, it wants you to have your variable on the left side, so make sure that your variable is on the left side. Okay, let's take a look at another example. Solve the following inequality for Q. Write your answer in simplest form. Okay, first steps first. Let's draw the train tracks. Let's stay organized here. I'm going to write DC MAM, and that first step is to distribute. So notice here we have a negative sign in front of a set of parentheses. So please remember that there's that invisible 1 right there, and that's what you're going to be distributing, is this invisible negative 1. So I'm going to distribute that here and here. Negative times negative is a positive 3Q. Negative times a positive 3 is negative 3. And bring down anything you didn't use. 6Q minus 7 minus 7. Okay, so that was the first step. We distributed. Perfect. Now let's take a look for like terms. Remember, they have to be on the same side. So on this side, we have a negative 9Q and a positive 3Q. They both have that variable with the same exponent, so they're like terms. Negative 9Q plus 3Q gives us 6Q. And then on this side, we have two constants here, two numbers that don't have variables, so those are like terms. And when we combine negative 7 and negative 7, we get negative 14. Okay, I'm going to bring down anything we didn't use, which includes this minus 3, this inequality symbol, and then this 6Q. And we're going to go from there. So that second step is done. Okay, oops, I did make a mistake, so I'm just refreshing. I'm taking a look at my example. This should actually be a negative 6, okay? So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to not move the variable with the smaller coefficient just in this case. Normally I would do that, but I want to show you something in the end. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to move this 6Q here. So I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to subtract 6Q. And just a reminder that move variable with the smaller coefficient is just a suggestion. It's not necessarily an exact step that you need to follow. It just helps you avoid negatives in the end, which we'll see. We'll see what's going to happen. But you could really, from this point on, you could solve it in whatever order you want to, as long as you do the steps correctly. Okay, so that cancels there. And we get negative 12Q minus 3 is greater than or equal to negative 14. Okay, let's move those variables. That stays the same, so I'm going to add 3 to both sides. That cancels. We get negative 12Q is greater than or equal to different signs we subtract to keep the sign of the larger, so we get negative 11 there. Okay, so now we're going to divide. Well, let's do that in blue. We're going to divide by negative 12. So remember, whenever I divide by a negative, I put a star there, because whenever you divide by a negative number, you have to flip the inequality sign. That's so, so, so important. Okay, so we know these cancel. So I have Q, and then I'm going to flip that inequality sign. So I'm actually going to write flip symbol. Okay, don't forget to do that. And then a negative divided by a negative is a positive. So we just leave it as 11 over 12 because we can't simplify it, but we do know that a negative divided by negative is a positive. Okay, so this is our answer here. This is also the same as 11 over 12 is greater than or equal to Q. Both of those are correct. But like I said, Delta Math likes to have the variable on the left side. So if you end up with an answer that looks like this, just make sure you switch it. If you switch the places of the variable and the answer, just make sure you flip that inequality symbol. But that is why I wanted to move this instead, because I wanted to review this step, which is a step that a lot of people forget about. So I want to make sure that you guys don't forget it. So when solving multi-step inequalities, follow these steps. It's really going to help you stay organized. And yeah, so just distribute, combine your like terms, and then solve it as if you would solve a regular like 3-step equation. Move your variable, move your constant, and then isolate that variable in the end, get it all by itself.